Well, my friends, here we are in part 7 now of the Learn How to Podcast 101 video tutorial series. And I'm very excited to share that for those of you who are here wanting to learn how to podcast as a hobby, just dipping your toes in the water, this is the tutorial that is actually going to show you how you can start your podcast today for free. I would like to take this opportunity to let those of you who are looking to start a podcast that is going to have high quality professional sound that's going to represent you well, set up in such a way that you'll have the greatest chance for success in building a brand and a community around your podcast. I want to let you know about a few resources that I have available to help you take the next steps in taking your podcast to the next level after setting up the understanding of this basic foundation for podcasting. First and foremost, I will tell you, you can go to podcastanswerman.com. I have more than 200 hours worth of free content in my Podcast Answer Man podcast. I also want to let you know that I do have podcast consulting and coaching services, one-on-one help in helping you launch your podcast. I use GoToMeeting in my one-on-one sessions. So basically, it's kind of like I'm there right next to you, sitting right at your computer with you. I'm able to share my computer screen with you, much like you've seen many times where you've seen the screencasted recording of what's going on my screen. It's no different. The only thing is, instead of being pre-recorded, I'm doing it live for you right there. You're seeing it as it's happening on the screen. Not only that, but if there happens to be a program that we need to install, like how to configure some software that you're going to be using for your podcasting, I can actually allow you to share your screen with me, and I can actually walk you through step by step on how to set certain things up. The cool thing about my one-on-one coaching and consulting is that you get immediate help that can save you weeks, if not months worth of research and work on getting your podcast launched. And I also want to let you know that I do personalized equipment recommendations and setup instructions. Now, you can contact me directly at cliff@podcastanswerman.com and ask me what my hourly rate is. I am able to help you come up with even personalized equipment recommendations. And not only do I give you the equipment recommendations, but I show you exactly how to set up the equipment, whether it be the equipment that you had maybe purchased from one of my packages. Even if you already have your own podcast equipment like this Pioneer mixer that I had never seen before, I'm able to go online, get all the documentation on it, get some screen captures, and help draw diagrams so that I can show you exactly how you'll hook up each piece of equipment and how it all works together. I also want to let you know about my video training tutorial products. Now, this product right here, this Learn How to Podcast 101 video tutorial series, is absolutely free. I do hope that you'll tell other people about it. Just tell them to come over to learnhowtopodcast.com. But I do have some other training materials that take us beyond the 101 level. For example, I do have WordPress for podcasters. It's everything you need, step by step. This is perfect for those of you who haven't even registered your domain yet. You don't have a hosting account set up. I actually walk you through step by step, setting up a Bluehost hosting account, installing WordPress, configuring all the plugins, even taking your RSS feed, creating the categories, and submitting it to FeedBurner. And then once you have your WordPress all set up and you got your podcast submitted to all the directories, I then have the thesis theme tutorial. If you actually want to take the look of your podcast, the look of your brand to the next level. I love the thesis theme, and I have a tutorial that'll tell you step by step exactly what you need to do to actually transform the default WordPress theme into something that looks something more like podcastanswerman.com or gspn.tv. Then, of course, I have 3 different tutorials that you could choose from to learn how to edit your podcast, all the basics that you would need to know as a podcaster to edit a podcast so that it sounds the best possible. It's in Adobe Audition 101, GarageBand 101, or Audacity 101. All 3 of those are available for purchase. And then, of course, I have the Roland R05 and Edirol R09HR digital audio recorder video tutorial. It's a tutorial that walks you through step by step all the settings on these digital recorders that are going to help you learn how to use the display on the front of these devices to guarantee yourself perfect audio levels 100% of the time. Also, I have Social Media 101, learning how to build your personal brand online. Remember, I opened up part 1 of this tutorial by just briefly explaining who I am and that I actually started Podcast Answer Man back in 2006 thinking that I would love to have this pipe dream come true of doing podcasting full-time as my career. And literally within 2 years of launching Podcast Answer Man, I began doing podcasting as my full-time career. And I did that through using social media to build my personal brand. And of course, I do have another tutorial called Evaluating Your Podcast. This is a checklist that will help you self-evaluate how to take your podcast to the next level. I used to do one-on-one podcast evaluations where I would take a checklist of nearly 100 different things that I would look at when it comes to your website, when it comes to your RSS feed, when it comes to your iTunes directory listing or your MP3 file or the content itself. I would actually go through this checklist and then evaluate people's podcasts based upon those things and share that information with them. Well, eventually I decided to turn that into a product tutorial where I show all the things I'm looking for, why I'm looking at them, and advice and tips on how to use these different checklist items to take your podcast to the next level. And of course, I have more training products available that I don't even have mentioned here. Plenty more. In fact, I have training materials on how to generate income from your podcasting efforts. I'm always creating new tutorials, like the next one that's on my list that I want to do is telephone and Skype interviews for your podcast. So just head on over to podcastanswerman.com/products to see what all I have available at any given time. And of course, I want to let you know about my Podcasting A to Z online training course. It is by far the best value for helping you get set up with your podcast. Now, rather than sit here and go on and on about it, I've actually created a very high quality video commercial talking about my Podcasting A to Z course. I'm going to go ahead and play that for you now, and then we'll get to that step-by-step tutorial on how hobbyists can launch a podcast today.
Do you want to learn how to podcast, but don't know where to start? Then you've come to the right place. Cliff Ravenscraft, the Podcast Answer Man, has helped hundreds of people just like you launch successful podcasts. Podcasting since December of 2005, Cliff made podcast production, consulting, and coaching his full-time career in January of 2008. Now you are invited to participate in Cliff's Podcasting from A to Z online group training course. Podcasting from A to Z is a 4-week training program that will equip you with everything you need to know to produce a podcast, a successful podcast. In fact, many of the students who have participated in previous Podcasting from A to Z sessions have had their first podcast episode available in iTunes, Zune, and the BlackBerry podcast directories by the end of the 3rd or 4th week of the course. Those who need a little more help with picking a niche topic, naming their podcast, or choosing the format of their show will get all the help they need. Here's how the course works. At the beginning of each week, you will be given an outline that will walk you through the new training materials available for that week. These training materials will be online and available for you to go through at a time that is most convenient for you. This means that the course materials actually work around your schedule rather than you trying to rearrange your schedule to fit the course. And you won't be alone. One of the benefits of this course is that this is a group study. You will be participating with a small group of others who are working towards the same goal of launching their podcast. So not only will you get answers to each question that you ask, but you'll also benefit from seeing the answers to the questions that other participants think to ask. Your interaction with Cliff and others within the course will happen within a discussion forum format where you can post every question you have along your journey. Cliff will personally respond to every question you ask during this 4-week course. Each week, Cliff will host a conference call to make sure the class is on the same page and to answer any lingering questions that may have arisen during the week's training materials. The conference calls are held via GoToWebinar, where Cliff will share his screen with each of the students who are able to make it to the live call. This is perfect for answering questions that are better answered with a video demonstration rather than a written response. You do not have to be present during these live conference calls. If your schedule will not allow you to participate live, it's not a problem at all. All conference calls will be recorded, and those who are unable to attend will still have opportunity to submit their questions for Cliff to cover on the call ahead of time. Here's the deal. The participants of this group training study will get the help they need, regardless of what their own personal schedule looks like. Here are some of the things that you'll learn as a participant in this Podcasting from A to Z program. The basics of podcasting, how it works, how to decide what topic to podcast about, how to identify your target audience, methods for finding your target audience, thoughts on naming your podcast, choosing the right domain name, the importance of your website as your home on the web, complete training on setting up WordPress for podcasting, setting up a hosting account for your website, installing WordPress, configuring the site for podcasting, adding an audio player to your site, how to submit your podcast to iTunes, Zune, and BlackBerry directories, how to put subscription links on your site, how to set up a podcast if you're using a free blogging service, guidance on the format of your podcast, the length of your podcast, the frequency of your podcast, solo or co-host discussions, interviews, live versus pre-recorded, choosing the right equipment for your podcast, how to start with as little as $35 in equipment, the best gear to get if you have the budget to do so, tips on how to start small and build up if you need to, equipment setup training, tips on recording your podcast, audio editing software training, training on how to manage the hosting of your MP3 files, complete production workflow. This will give you a complete step-by-step set of instructions that will make producing your podcast as easy as possible so that you can focus your energy on the content and your audience. You'll also learn training on how to promote your show, training on how to engage in relationships with your audience, tips on how to build a community around your podcast, training on methods for generating income from your podcasting efforts. So what is the value of the Podcasting from A to Z online training course? Well, many of Cliff's clients who want to start a podcast usually start the process by setting up 5 two-hour coaching sessions. At his current consulting rate, the total cost of these sessions would be $3,000. Now you can have access to the same information for much less. And the best part is most of the training provided during this course is done through very thorough video and audio tutorials that have been created over the past several years. The benefit of this is extraordinary, because rather than have Cliff share information with you one time in a live session and then expect you to remember it all from your own notes, Cliff has spent days, weeks, and months creating the tutorials that you can view over and over again as often as you like. One of our Podcasting from A to Z students wrote the following in an email. Here is a funny thing. I jot down questions that I want to post within the forum while I'm going through the material, and each and every time so far, you end up covering my question a bit further into the program. So I thank you for being so comprehensive. If you were to purchase every single tutorial included in this course individually, you'd pay well over $1,000 and would not have the benefit of asking an unlimited number of questions for a total of 4 weeks. The class size for this course is limited. Only a small group of students are granted access for each 4-week session, and these spots do fill quickly. In this Podcasting from A to Z online training course from Cliff Ravenscraft, you will learn everything you need to know about how to podcast from A to Z.
Well, there you go, my friends. That is the Podcasting A to Z online training course. Now, these spots do typically fill up pretty quickly. You can always find out more information at podcastinga2z.com. Again, that's podcastinga2z.com. Or you can email me, cliff@podcastanswerman.com, and ask me when my next session is. Now's the time, my friends, when we're going to get into the bonus video tutorial. For those of you who are not ready to invest in any kind of podcasting equipment, website, or media hosting, I do want to share the following tutorial that will teach you, if you want to, how to create a podcast from scratch in less than 20 minutes and not spend a single penny doing it. And here, my friends, is that tutorial now. Okay, so we're going to now see how quickly I can launch a podcast from scratch using Posterous, which I have never used before in my life. I've never signed up for an account or anything like that. But here we are at posterous.com, and we're going to see how quickly we can set up a podcast here. So I'm just going to put in demo at podcastanswerman.com. We're going to do demo PAM. Password is going to be here. All right, and we're going to click Let's Go. All right, it is submitting and it says, let's get started. Let's write our first post. Actually, it wants me to save my passwords, which I like to do in LastPass. All right, so let's write our first post. Okay, well, let's do that. So we click here, post. Let's see here. I can upload images, audio, video, and docs over here on media. Again, this is the first time I've ever seen Posterous, but the reason why I'm choosing Posterous is because I've heard that you can upload audio files for free up to 100 megabytes. So we're going to give this a shot here. So this is going to be 001, My Garden Podcast, testing first episode. All right, next we're going to come down here and we are going to put, this is my show notes for my first episode. In this episode, I discussed the following. All right, we'll just put down here item 1, item 2, item 3. All right, and so we're done with that. Right click here to download this episode now. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Now we're going to go over here to the right-hand side and we're going to upload a couple things here. The very first thing I want to upload is I'm going to go to my desktop. I have a file on here called Garden 600. I'm going to go ahead and just upload that for just a moment over to the Posterous server. And there's a reason why I'm going to do this, and it'll become evident in just a moment, I hope. All right, I'm going to upload another image in here, and it's going to be Garden 150. All right, so we're going to put that in here. And it seems like we have everything except for we don't have an audio file. So why don't we create one of those real fast? I'm going to use my favorite audio recording software, and I'm going to close this out. We're going to go ahead and record this just sample episode here. We're going to call this Garden 001. All right. And I'm going to click OK. Hey, everybody. This is my very first Garden podcast episode, number 1. We're going to cover items number 1, 2, and 3 in this episode. Thank you for listening. All right. So you just record your MP3 or your audio file. And of course, you want to save that as an MP3. And so I'm going to go ahead and do there it is, Garden 001, but not a wave. We're going to do MP3, and I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. So now I have my MP3 file. It has been recorded, and I bring it over here, and you can see it's on my desktop. Okay, and I'm also going to bring over this artwork right over here into my desktop so you can see it, and I'm going to open up a piece of software called ID3 Tag Editor, and there we go. And it's going to ask me, where is this file that you want to tag? And this is putting our ID3 tags on here. So I'm going to put desktop, and I am going to look for, there we go, desktop. And there we go, Garden 001, and I'm going to click images. All right. And once we have the image there, we'll just drag and drop that on. And then over here, I'm going to give it my first episode. The artist is Cliff Ravenscraft, and the album is My Garden Podcast, and the genre is podcast. I'm not going to worry about the other tags. Of course, you can go to podcastanswerman.com/tagging to find out more information about this. Anyway, next thing I'm going to do is that file has been tagged and it's ready to upload. So I'm going to go ahead and click here and upload and bring that down, and we've got Garden 001.mp3. We're uploading that now. Okay, and it's just taking a second because it is an MP3 file. I want to figure out how this works, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit publish now. Again, this is my first time ever using Posterous. Never have used this before in my life. We have our first item here. Here would be the title of the episode. You've got all of this other stuff. You'll notice that it says we discussed items 1, 2, 3. Right-click here to download. You notice it doesn't actually have anything right now. But there is down here an audio player, so if I click play. Hey everybody, this is my very first Garden podcast episode, number 1. We're going to cover items number 1, 2, and 3 in this episode. Thank you for listening. All right. And then if we click the download button here, you'll see that I can actually hover over here and I can right click and copy link address. This is very important stuff. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to open up a text editor, and I'm just going to make sure that I have that pasted correctly. And you can see this is a very long URL, but this is the actual location of where that MP3 file is, and this is very important information. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to actually get back into my posts so that I can actually manage this. All right, I want to go into this first episode and I want to edit it now. All right, and the reason why it's important to edit this is because we have to create a link, a hyperlink to this MP3 file. So I'm going to highlight that text that says right click here to download, and I want to make a link to that. So there's a little link icon there. I clicked and it says link URL, and I'm going to paste in that link that I got from copying the link, the URL, or copying the shortcut. All right, and what we are going to do is we'll just leave that as not set. It doesn't matter. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit insert, and now I'm going to click update. Okay, and so here we are, and now you'll see that it has the right click here to download this episode now. If I right click and do save link as, I could download that MP3 file. That's very important. And one of the things that I just now realized is I'm doing all of this in Chrome, which is not a big deal, but they don't have the best best RSS reader when it comes to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paste in here demopan, let's see here, demopam.posterous.com, and I'm going to pull that up. And obviously I won't be logged in anymore, so I don't see the manage and stuff like that. And of course you could put your artwork up here. You can update your profile, I'm sure. And in fact, instead of having Demo Man's podcast, this could be My Garden Podcasts Posterous. So just, know all of this is not being customized right now. This is just to see how quickly we can launch a podcast using Posterous service, and especially with me having absolutely no experience with Posterous ever before. But I can see here that there's a link to the RSS feed, so I'm going to go ahead and click this. Now this is the RSS feed, and what I want to tell you right now is that many people will take this RSS feed and they'll immediately head over to iTunes. And I highly recommend that you don't just submit this to iTunes, because eventually you're going to want to probably get this off of Posterous and move it over to your own hosting account. And you'll find out why eventually. I hope so anyway, when your podcast becomes so popular and it becomes an issue. So what we need to do next is I'm going to go over to FeedBurner. All right, so feedburner.com. All right, and the very first thing it's going to do, it's going to ask me to log in. And so what I'm going to do is demo at ravenscraft.org is what I'm going to have to sign in as. And that is going to be that, and hit in here and hit remember password. That's fine. So now I'm logged in. You'll notice it says you have no feeds currently. That's not a problem. I'm just going to paste in the RSS feed URL right in here to this little box and say I'm a podcaster. I'm going to click next. All right. And then it's going to say, what's the title of this? This is My Garden Podcast. And then I'm going to put fake garden podcast is the feeds. This would be the RSS feed that people will subscribe to and that you're going to send to iTunes and everything. It's going to be feeds.feedburner.com/fake-garden-podcast. All right, so if I click next, it says, okay, congrats. And you just click next at the bottom here. And I'm going to actually tell it to only enclose audio files only, because I'm only going to do, audio podcasting here. And then I'm going to do over here, let's just say we're going to put this into society and culture and personal journals, My Garden Podcast. Now it says preview image. This is the image for the iTunes directory. So I'm going to go back over here, and here's this big image right here. So I'm going to do right click, and I'm going to copy that image location. When I copy an image URL, I like to go into a text editor and make sure I have everything. And so this is where I uploaded that JPG file for my logo, the big 600 by 600 image. This is the URL for that. So that looks great. I can see it starts with an HTTP and it ends with a JPG. And so I'm going to take that very long URL and I'm going to paste it right on in here and click preview image. make sure it works. And sure enough, that is correct. I'll go ahead and close that window. Podcast subtitle, I'm just going to leave blank. This is my totally fake garden podcast. All right. And then some keywords that people might find you at in iTunes: garden podcast, totally fake. All right. And then my email address is going to be demo@podcastanswerman.com. And then I'm going to put copyright. I'm going to put my garden podcast, LLC, just playing around. All right. And then Cliff Ravenscraft. All right. So I'm just going to click next. And I'm not even going to worry about these stats and everything there. I'm just going to click next. And there we go. We are successfully set up. And now if we go under this little RSS icon under the M, I'm going to click here and it says Demo Man's Posterous. And we can see that we have this all set up over here. Now, here's what I want to tell you is that we are going to go ahead and fix this where it says Demo Man's Posterous. And it really doesn't have any branding on our RSS feed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the Optimize tab here. And by the way, all that stuff we filled out before, if you ever need to change it, is under Optimize and then SmartCast. And you can change the podcast summary and everything. But what we're looking for now is this title/description burner. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do this. We're going to do new title is My Garden Podcast. I'm going to leave out the new description because if I leave that blank, it'll still pull it from the old summary there. So that's one thing I want to fix. So now if I go over here and hit refresh, there we go. You notice it immediately has the My Garden Podcast now. And there's one other thing I want to do. I want to do a feed image burner. And you just click that on the left-hand side, do specify custom URL. And this is why we have that 150 by 150 artwork. I'm going to right click and I'm going to do copy image location. I'm just going to open it up in my text editor, make sure that I do have a link to a file. Yep, that is absolutely correct. And we're going to go in here and do a paste of that URL into the thing here. And we're going to do My Garden Podcast. And we're going to make that link back to our site, which is without the RSS and without that little bracket there. Sorry about that. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to copy that. I'm going to go back over to here and I'm going to say anytime somebody clicks that link or that image, I want it to link to my Posterous page. I click update and I click refresh. And by golly, look at that. My Garden Podcast. If they click that, it's going to take them to my Garden Podcast page. It's got My Garden Podcast up here. And by golly, we're all set to go. Now, this is, again, I've never used Posterous before, so bear with me. I'm going to go ahead and log back into Posterous. And looks like LastPass is allowing me to get right back in with no problem. I'm going to hit Manage. And what I want to do is I want to actually see if I can edit the thing here. I actually want to click here. And I don't want to delete the photo from the... I want to delete this gallery. I hope this doesn't delete it off of the... Are you sure you want to delete this? And yes, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And I'm just hoping that it doesn't delete those images. So now if I go back and update, there we go. So now we don't have those images taking up our space here. And you can see now it's just the show notes and the player, the ability to do right click and download. And what I want to do is I just want to make sure that I still have the ability to pull up those images because we don't want to submit this to iTunes without that ability. So I'm going to go in here and pull that up and I'm just going to hit refresh a couple times. So yes, even though I deleted it from the post, Posterous is still keeping that image online. Okay, so we're really good there. Okay, so now if I go again here and I take feeds.feedburner.com/fake garden podcast, I'm going to go ahead and take that and then I'm going to open up iTunes. There it is. And I am going to pull this up in here for you. All All right, and the very first thing I want to do is go to the iTunes Store, and then I'm going to go to Podcasts, and then I'm going to go over here to Submit a Podcast. All right, and it says you need the feed URL. I'm going to submit that, click Continue. It is going to ask me to log in with my iTunes credentials. If you don't have one, you can create an account very easily. All right, and as soon as I do that, it's going to say, is this the right artwork? Is this the right name? Is this the right author? Is this the right description? Is this the right category? Is this the right subcategory? Is it English? And is it a clean podcast? Meaning, is it, it doesn't have any foul language or anything like that. And then you hit submit and boom, you're done. All right. Obviously, I am not going to submit a fake podcast to iTunes. But, my friends, what I can do is in iTunes, I'm going to click over here to podcasts. All right. And it is possible to click on this thing up here where it says advanced and then subscribe to podcast. All right. And then we come back down to here and you're going to see a URL box, and I can paste in feeds.feedburner.com/fake garden podcast and click subscribe. And by golly, check this out. There's my first episode. I click play. Hey, everybody, this is my very first garden podcast episode, number 1. We're going to cover items number 1, 2, and 3 in this episode. Thank you for listening. So there you go. That's how long it took me to actually, from scratch, create a podcast. It is ready. It's good to go. But now what I'm going to do is show you just how easy it is to create a second episode. All right, so here we go. All right, we are going to open up Adobe Audition, and we're going to close out the first one. We are going to hit here, and this is Garden 002. Click OK. This is my second podcast episode for my garden podcast. Thank you for listening. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and take that out, and I notice I messed up a little bit here. For my garden podcast. All right, and I'm just going to edit that little bit out, and we'll just cut that end. And so it should say, this is my second podcast episode for my garden podcast. Thank you for listening. All right, there we go. So I'm going to do File. We're going to do Save As. All right, and then we're going to save this as an MP3 file, and we're going to click OK. All right, that has been saved to my desktop. I'll drag that over here where you can see it. All right, and now what I'm going to do is open up my ID3 tag software. There we go. And it's going to ask me, where is this file that you want to tag? I am going to open it. And the very first thing I want to do is click on Pictures. And I want to give it my artwork. And then I want to say my second episode. And this is Cliff Ravenscraft. And my garden podcast. And podcast. And then click Update. We're good to go. Now we're going to go back over to, let's say Firefox, because that's a better browser to kind of show you all this stuff. Let's see here. So I guess we go to Manage once we're logged into Posterous. And I would imagine we want to do a new post. Well, let's see here. This is, okay, so that's if I wanted to do another site. I just want to do Post by Web. All right. Let's see here. We'll do 002, My Garden Podcast. This is my second episode. Here are my show notes, blah, blah, blah. And then it's as simple as going over here and clicking Upload Audio. And I am going to go over to Desktop. And I am going to go to Garden 002, click Upload. And it's going to put it right on in there for me. Oh, and I just remembered while it's doing that, I do want to create, it's very important for me to do this, actually, I have a little code in here, RRC. There you go. That's a little thing with Text Expander, by the way. And I'm just going to go ahead and click Publish. Okay. And let's see here. I'm going to click the download. I'm going to right-click here, copy link location. I'm going to go over to my text program and just confirm that I got a good link to an MP3 file. Yep, it looks great. And so now with that, I am actually going to go in here and I'm going to say Manage. And I'm going to go up to my episode number 2. And I am going to right click, or I'm going to highlight where I have the right click here to download. I'm going to click the link button. I'm going to paste the link to that MP3 file, click insert, click update, and everything else should happen automatically. All right. Now what happens here is sometimes FeedBurner will get the information immediately. So if I hit refresh, it will automatically show 002. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit refresh a couple times, and chances are it's not going to pick it up. It doesn't look like Posterous is like sending the information over to FeedBurner. But that's okay, because if I were just to be patient and I just waited maybe 10 or 15 minutes, FeedBurner is going to go back and look at that feed and do this for me automatically. Otherwise, what I could do is I could log into my FeedBurner account and I could click My Garden Podcast, which you should never have to do this as long as you're patient. After publishing a new episode, it should happen automatically after 15 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and click on Troubleshootize, and this is not because there is a problem, it's just because I don't want to wait 10 or 15 minutes. And so now that I hit that, I should be able to hit refresh, and it shows episode number 2 in there, okay? And so now what I can do is go to iTunes. I can go here, refresh, click update. It immediately says, hey, there's a new episode. I'm going to go ahead and tell it that I want it. You'll notice that it puts my artwork in there already, and double click on this one. This is my second podcast episode for My Garden Podcast. Thank you for listening. Well, there you go. That, my friends, is how we can create a podcast from scratch using Posterous. Well, there you go, my friends. That's the tutorial on how to create a podcast on your own from scratch without costing a single penny, and we did it in less than 20 minutes. Now, I do want to remind you that the important thing is that you remember that FeedBurner feed, because that way, whenever you decide to take your podcast to the next level, and I hope each and every one of you do, that you'll be able to do so without worrying about losing any subscribers. If you need help along the way, remember there are plenty of ways that I have to help you out. Check out podcastanswerman.com or email me, cliff@podcastanswerman.com. All right, so here we are. What did we cover in this tutorial? We covered what is a podcast. We gave you an overview of how podcasting works. It's kind of like that big puzzle box that shows you what those 1,000 pieces of the puzzle are going to look like when it's all done. We talked about podcast equipment options. We gave you website and media hosting recommendations. We taught you how to properly set up your podcast RSS feed and how to submit your RSS feed to the various podcast directories. And I've also given you my step-by-step proven workflow for podcasting so that you can produce a show with as little post-production as possible. And of course, we just wrapped up with the step-by-step instructions on how you can create a podcast from scratch in under 20 minutes, 100% free. And my friends, that is it. We are finished. We are complete with this tutorial. I hope that you have enjoyed it. I do have a part 8 that is a Q&A session that I did when I actually presented this information live via a webinar. If you're interested in that, I encourage you to look for the information below this video on how you can obtain the Q&A session that was done. And I just want to personally say thank you. And if there's anything I can do to help you take your podcasting to the next level, please contact me, cliff@podcastanswerman.com, or just head over to podcastanswerman.com. And one last favor that I ask you, will you please tell someone else about learnhowtopodcast.com? Let's spread the word about the joy of podcasting to the world. God bless you all. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.